Thundergrunt.
Hey guys!
Bob?
Hey, Bob.
Let's introduce each other.
I am Jimmy George. I am a screenwriter and full-time script consultant.
I am Jamie Nash, screenwriter, sometimes novelist, like this week when the 44 Rules of Amateur Sleuthing is free
Nice.
on Kindle.
Wow, that's a great book. I can't wait to buy it. I'm Bob Rose.
Me too. I'd really like that book.
If I had a girlfriend, she'd kill me. I'm Bob Rose. I'm an independent filmmaker. I'm a podcaster, and I'm not a big fan of the ocean.
Okay.
If you guys didn't know.
I didn't know
Billy
that.
Ocean?
Billy Ocean. No.
Billy Ocean.
Whoa, sir.
Ocean's 11.
I'm not a big fan of Ocean's,
Okay.
the Ocean's franchise, actually. But Billy Ocean, I'm down with.
Okay.
Pretty down with there. So let's
Come on.
make that clear on the mic.
Okay.
Anyway, today we're going to talk about a movie that I think you guys would agree could be one of the more difficult movies we're ever going to talk about on this show.
Yeah.
A Serbian film.
A Serbian film.
film.
No.
Now. No, it's Antichrist. No, wait. We're going to talk about Adaptation.
Yeah.
Which
And, yeah.
Which
from-
adaptation, Bob?
the Adaptation.
The Bible.
Right. Charlie Kaufman, Spike Lee, Nick Cage. That
Not Spike Lee. Spike Jones.
Spike Jones. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Okay.
I'd love to see Spike Lee do this movie.
I wonder if Spike Lee
awesome.
likes this movie.
Yeah.
I could see him liking this
I could
movie.
see him liking
me too.
this movie. Yeah. Yeah, this is a movie that I think we have. It's not a blockbuster,
No.
which I want to clear up right now, too. I think we've had some questions from fans, right?
Both
The
of them.
5 fans.
The 5 fans that we have,
Yeah.
we lean towards doing blockbusters, but every now and then we're going to do cultural blockbusters, things that have a reputation and
Well
that we want
put,
to talk
Bob.
about.
That's
Like
right.
Fargo, like Adaptation.
Yeah.
Blockbusters for the soul.
Perfect.
And that's why Jamie makes the big bucks.
There you go.
So Adaptation, guys. When was this made, Jamie?
It was made in it premiered in 2002, December 6th, and it made a grand total of $22 million. But it was huge foreign stuff.
Oh, really?
Huge, yeah, 10 million.
And yeah, that's got to be profitable, right? I mean,
Did it say how much it was?
It says the budget here is 19 million.
Okay.
So
it made its
barely
money back.
profitable.
probably with the overseas money,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it busted some block.
Yeah.
in-
Yeah.
overseas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was written by Charlie Kaufman.
Yeah.
And this kind of, I mean, obviously, anyone who's seen the movie knows it's kind of a weird response to the popularity of John
Malkovich.
being John Malkovich.
Yeah, being John Malkovich is even in the
Yeah, they're on the set in the movie.
Yeah, and Charlie Kaufman, I think the reason we really need to do this movie on this podcast is because Charlie Kaufman is kind of one of the few writers who his voice almost, would you say, trumps the director's
Yep.
voice in a movie.
Yeah,
It's more a Charlie Kaufman movie than a
such
Spike
rare
Jones
thing.
movie.
It feels like we're talking about a Charlie Kaufman film.
Yeah.
Even
I
though
mean, he's pretty much a director now. Like his voice got
Yeah.
so strong he became a
then
director.
he wasn't though. In fact, like I don't know if you've read up on any of the development of this movie. There's a lot of stuff in the script that Spike Jones was like, "I'm only doing it if we cut this and we cut that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we cut this."
Yeah, like the swamp ape.
The
and
swamp
stuff like
ape,
that.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
there was
right.
there was a which I wish this was in the movie. There was an entire monologue from Robert McKee that was a page on the
Oh
script.
yeah, and he said never write. a
And it's
page
about
monologue.
not
Yeah.
writing a monologue that's a whole page of a script.
You're right.
Which they I don't even think they shot it because Spike Jones was like,
That would just be a good short film.
Yeah.
Well, after after seeing his follow-up movies, which I love everything Kaufman has done pretty much. But I think Spike Jonze, he leans towards making a more audience-friendly, artistic movie.
Right.
Whereas Charlie Kaufman, it is like with Schenectady and even Anomalisa, they're not, you know what I mean? They're not giving you any favors. They're just uncompromising.
Yeah.
So Spike Jonze is a little bit...
Yeah, he's got a commercial sensibility to him.
So he's going to change the script to make it a little comprehensible.
And we have even talked about this before, but I always, I teach screenwriting, and I always show, like, the first day of class, I show Robert McGee, actually, in his book, like, the first page has this triangle of types of movies. And the one at the very top, there's the classic structure, the arch plot. And that's basically every movie that Marvel makes and Pixar and things like that.
All the movies we've talked about previously.
Pretty much.
Genre film.
Yeah.
Genre filmmaking.
It's closed loop filmmaking. Setups are paid off. Chekhov's gun kind of stuff going on. They're artificial in a sense. They have endings, all that kind of stuff. Then in the lower left-hand corner, I'm picturing it with my hands here. In the lower left,
we can confirm.
Exactly. Yeah. In the lower left-hand corner, there's a thing called mini plot, which is more resembling real life. And mini plot don't necessarily have cause effect to the storytelling. They sometimes just have random things happen in the middle of it, just like life does. They're trying to approximate, and they sometimes don't end. They just kind of fizzle out. And then on the other side, the far right, you have kind of like the surreal stuff, the nonlinear stuff, the weird stuff.
Yeah.
And I would say the reason I bring this up is it's kind of interesting because Charlie Kaufman, the character, is almost saying he wants to make one of these mini plot kind of movies that present itself as real life. And I would say this movie is it falls into that sometimes. It's also a little bit surrealistic.
Yeah.
Anyway, the reason I say that is because when I teach my class, I say I can teach things about that arch plot and that classical structure and that
that's the math.
It's the math,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this other stuff, when you get into the mini plots and the other, it falls more into the art, and there's no, it's harder to say this works, that doesn't.
Yeah.
And
to conceptualize how the mechanics of doing those things is really hard. That's why this episode is very hard, because it's like, how do you teach that? How do you teach these creative decisions that he's making? Because it really is
you can't teach someone to be like Charlie Kaufman.
Yeah, to make these decisions.
Because no one is like Charlie Kaufman, and it just there's an alchemy there that it just works.
Yeah,
and no one knows why.
So this podcast becomes trickier to do our usual, like, let's break it down by a Save the Cats book.
How does it compare to Solo?
Where's the inciting incident?
Right.
No, I know, and it's great because McKee, we've talked about McKee, like, not extensively, but we've name dropped him.
He's a couple episodes.
Yeah, so it's fun to kind of get here. And now we're talking about it's like a deconstruction of even him as a person.
And that's what this episode is, and it's about a movie that's about deconstruction.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's why I thought it would be important to lead off with that. The only other thing I'd say about Charlie Kaufman, I mean, his career, he started in sitcoms. I remember he did Get a Life, I think, which was
Ned and Stacey.
Which
I really like.
I love that show.
Get a Life is amazing. I love Get a Life. Yeah. I mean, that's a really surrealist sitcom that was making fun of sitcoms.
It is. Yeah. I don't know where he was on that writing staff, whether he was a wheel on the cog or what his deal was.
I think he was just a wheel on the cog. Yeah.
But then I think being John Malkovich is his launch into the stratosphere.
Right. Where did Human Nature play into it?
That was
right after.
Right after.
Yeah, and that was like his only kind of critical flop.
Gotcha.
I actually like it.
I like it too.
I really like it.
That's why I was asking. I don't know where.
Probably his most normal movie.
Yeah, it's the most commercial and like traditional. Right. It's telling. Yeah.
It's strange. Like the one, and everybody. This is probably like a little bit like a Coen Brothers. My favorite of his is, if you count this, is Eternal Sunshine.
Mine too.
Because I think it does cross into a little bit of just being normal in some ways, even though it is odd and weird and stuff like that. So.
It's very digestible.
I love Eternal Sunshine to death, but I think actually Adaptation is my favorite.
This one that we're doing right now?
Well, yes, because to me, this everything he does in this, it's like him. It's like life defining. His career, he like literally commented on everything he could ever comment on in one movie, to a point where I'm almost overwhelmed to even think about it. Even now, after decades, 16 years of watching it. Yeah.
I would say that on rewatch, that might be true for me as well. Like when I first saw it, it didn't impact me in the same way as the rewatch. I actually really enjoyed it.
Me too.
In a way, even more than I enjoyed it probably the first time when I was bringing it all in.
I didn't have an appreciation for it in 2002 when I was only 3 years into being a screenwriter that I do now.
I probably
16 years later.
I probably had too hot of an appreciation of it then. You know what I mean? Like I was really first getting into it, and it was probably my thing. And I probably said, "Well, this is a movie just for me."
Yeah.
It like checked all the boxes for you.
But now I was able to kind of sit back, and now I'm not as hot about all that as I am, and just kind of enjoy it for what it's worth.
Well, it's funny because in a way, it's a movie that is a response to writer's block.
Yeah.
And we're doing. That's why we need to do it on writer's blockbusters, right?
Writer's block.
Because this is like the ultimate writer's block movie.
So to talk super quick about the development, it's kind of basically the story of the movie, right? Charlie Kaufman was hired to develop or to write a script for
The Orchid Thief.
Yep. And he was he got writer's block essentially, or he was blocked on it, and just came up with another idea. And he basically wrote the movie that you see by writing himself into it, almost just like how the movie plays out. And
his fake brother, who got an Oscar nom.
And his fake brother.
In history, the only time that ever happened.
It's amazing.
And additionally, he didn't tell the studio he was doing it. He decided it would be better if he pitched it, he'd just get shot down. So he was like, I'll just do it, and handed it in. They liked it. I guess the rest is history.
Man. Yeah, and I read that they liked it so much they fast-tracked it. Like, they didn't want people to, like, get too much wind of it, and they wanted to just fast-track, get it out there, and be like, blow people away. Like, what is this, you know?
I was actually working, when this came out, I was working at a video store. And I remember when it was released, a lot of customers were not happy about it, because they were looking forward to a Nick Cage movie.
Yeah. Oh, my God. I'll never forget, this is my favorite ticket purchasing experience ever. I bought a ticket. I was by myself. Actually, no, I was with my friend. And the lady at the ticket window said, "You're not going to like this."
And then your cynicism made you go, "No, I will now."
And we were the only, and we were the only two people in the theater, and it was like opening night. And so my friend and I sat in an empty theater after the lady who sold us tickets told us we wouldn't like it, and we loved it.
When I was watching it this time, I was watching at home, and my wife was watching over my shoulder, and she couldn't remember if she had seen it or not, like if I dragged her to it back in 2002 or not. And she kind of said, "Is this a movie like only screenwriters would like?" And I think that's the thing when I was watching it. I don't think it is a movie that only screenwriters would like.
I agree with you.
It's excellently acted. There's so much.
All the characters are deeply, like, you can empathize with all of them.
Yeah.
And they're all flawed in a way that's, like, real, but, you know, you just feel for every one of them. It like, captures humanity so well.
Well, let's talk about why that works. Like, I think theme would play into that, right?
Yeah,
I think so.
What brings the movie together? What holds it together?
Yeah,
I have my theory, but I want to hear Jamie's.
I want to hear Jamie before we're like before Bob and I are just staring at Jamie like holding our breath.
Tell us, Jamie.
Preach, Jamie.
So, I think this movie is held together by. No, it really is. It's a reflection of that theme thing, and it talks about writer's block in a sense to me, but somebody else might just see the writer's block portion as a sub theme to the bigger thing about the idea, the pursuit of happiness, almost the pursuit of something in your mind that's perfect, but then when you actually see it, it's just a flower.
Yeah,
it's just a flower.
Okay, I think I might differ on this because I think the theme is actually stated by Robert McGee in the movie.
Okay.
When he yells at Charlie in the audience,
"You need a desire."
Well, no, actually not that. You
cannot have a protagonist without desire.
What he said
made him sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
What was that, dude? Brian Cox, you made Arnold Schwarzenegger. No, the moment in the movie when he yells at him and says that if you think that's real life, you're not paying attention. Mm-hmm. You know, and from that moment on, what I love about this movie is from that moment on, the story starts to become a regular movie. Like the entire, like everything that he thinks is never going to happen in real life. The Meryl Streep, Chris Cooper storyline starts to turn into an actual movie.
Think that's real life. You're
not paying attention.
Interesting.
So it to me, the movie now as an adult reads is that real life is actually just as interesting as movies.
Man, I love that we all have different answers. That's why
that's a great movie
good.
Too. You can walk away with anything.
Okay, so like,
and I definitely think
you guys didn't see that.
I saw it. Now that you say it, I'm like, yeah, man, that's great.
Because that moment when he says, he's like, you're not paying attention to life. You need to live more if that's the way you view stuff. You need to go out and live before you write a fucking script.
That's a great point.
I think that is definitely a part of the mix.
Okay, it's a thick mix. I'm not saying that.
Because I would also say that whole thing is it's doing the thing but making fun of it at the same time. So when Donald, what's the key line he says in the end? It's not about.
Hold on. I got it. It's you aren't what you love. You are what you love, not what loves you.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. That's The Last Jedi. No,
you are what you love, not what loves you.
Which is an amazing line.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. And even that, it's like kind of saying the answer but making fun of the thing at the same time. It's like, come on, life is more than that. It's more complicated. It doesn't come down to that one thing, but on the same time it does kind of, so it mixes. It's making fun of things and doing
also
things
a weird commentary on internal and external forces that this movie is obviously playing on. Like that just that saying alone.
Oh yeah,
like
it's perfect.
You're only defined by what you're putting out, not what you're taking in.
Yeah, there's this interesting. We were gonna talk about that later, but there's this interesting thing which I don't agree with, which I feel like this movie talks about. So I got a couple things on theme. I think I think it's very literal, the theme, and it's about adaptation. And because it explores adaptation in the flowers, in the book. How do we make the book into a movie? In both the real characters, the real Susan Orlean, the real LaRoche, the real Charlie Kaufman, and the fictionalized characters once they start changing and adapting. And the movie itself adapts over the course of its duration. It changes from a comedic drama that's very real and honest to this fabricated drug thriller. The movie's adapting too. So it's like very literal. And then like each one of the characters adapts in very different ways. LaRoche is constantly adapting, constantly changing, constantly being like, I'm not interested in this anymore. I'm interested in this. Susan Orlean,
like a chaotic nonsense.
Susan Orlean, she like desires to adapt. She wants to be like LaRoche, but she can't. So she like wants it so bad. And then Charlie, he's the opposite. He doesn't want to change at all. He doesn't want to adapt. So like each of the characters, like the exploration of the characters is all about their ability to adapt or not adapt, or how they feel about adapting. So that stuck out to me. And then the other thing that I never thought about in the past, but now that we've been doing this so long, the rewatch, there's like a lot of back and forth from the beginning to the end, especially all the Robert McKee stuff and all the Donald scenes are about this, about unstructured creativity versus commercialism and structure in itself. I mean, his fucking script is called The Three. Like the 3-act structure, like it's so on the nose, and
as a younger person, I focus so much on the Donald Charlie dynamic. Like to me, that was the theme in 2002. Right. I didn't really notice all this other stuff.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, it was like an indictment of Hollywood almost.
I will say a little lesson because there aren't that many like these kind of typical things we do. One lesson I've always said, if you're ever trying to analyze a theme, if anybody's giving like a whiteboard speech in a classroom or something, it's almost always the theme. So if Robert McGee's up there talking about something, even though it sounds on the surface like screenwriting, it must be pertaining to
exactly. It's true.
I think the movie paints him as wrong to some degree, but he's not.
We can get in that.
Yeah, but I'm the one who's also said he said the theme, so
But like, so one thing I thought about, like, once I was really, because like. I took a lot more out of this the second time, like the rewatch. I was like, this is so much smarter than I even gave it credit for the first time. Like, he's talking about unstructured creativity versus structured commercial stuff, right? But this movie came out of his failure to be like traditional, right? It's like this very meta, even like his failure to be commercial with this telling is what ended up making it a commercial movie. Like it's so like heady. But
and you really just want to know how heady he was while writing this. Like,
right.
How does he view it?
Yeah. He's pretty
genius
open.
aware.
He's pretty open about like the creative process, and like he's pretty open in the interviews about like what this movie is to him. You know, he doesn't seem to shy away from it. But yeah, so I took both of those themes out of it, and I'm not sure there is a right answer, you know, because we all came out with completely different things. Yeah.
Well, I have a feeling there's one unifying theme that ties all these together in some ways, but it would be hard. It's hard to approach it.
Yeah.
Because all of the things everybody's saying, I agree, are part of the theme.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you guys said as far as theme. It's just
it's kind
somebody's
of
gonna send a message.
Dude,
you're wrong.
Well, it's a smorgasbord, man.
Yeah.
You watch a movie like this, you come away. Everyone's gonna come away with like 6 different things. It's just
Yeah,
it's kind of amusing on all of these things. You know, he's
is
musing in all different directions and all of these things throughout it.
Well, like I said, I really thought when I first watched this, it was basically like when I was more of like a film student, cynical jerkwad. I would be like, yeah, man, Hollywood sucks.
Right.
And his brother's Hollywood, and he's just tired of him, you know. And that's what I read it as before. And now I don't read it.
Now I read it like Donald is the guy with the answers.
Yeah.
It's like
yes, it got weirdly. I was like kind of on his side.
He's kind of ignorance is bliss sort of thing.
And also,
and he's enjoying life. He's not missing life, or he's not worried about ideas. He's enjoying life. You know what I'm saying?
And he's also
that's kind of my theme version of it.
He also
it's good, Jamie.
Out of the two, rewatching it now, I read it as he's written to be the one that kind of cares about people watching his movie.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Charlie comes off as he's trying to fulfill himself.
It's masturbatory.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, he's masturbating multiple
really
times in the
reminiscent
movie.
of Barton Fink. It was really reminiscent of Barton Fink.
I loved how every time he's masturbating, he gets interrupted by Donald wanting to pitch him his movie.
No,
it's like
and
the
that's
statement of Charlie.
Same thing happens to me all the time.
He's like the ultimate.
To me and Jimmy message you every time.
Jamie!
10 minutes ago, I had this great idea for a horror movie. And they burst in and said, let's do a podcast.
Yeah, let's do a podcast. Adaptation.
It's like he's saying like the greatest turn off to him is somebody wanting to talk about their idea.
Right.
So let's actually talk about the writer's block aspect of it. I wrote this down. Does it ask if it's possible to write a story without a central conflict? Is that what it's asking? And is that possible?
And you know, we talked about that arch plot, that Aristotelian classical structure. And when I stand up there and act like Robert McGee and tell you what a story is, I say a story has a goal, a hero with a goal, a desire. A hero needs a desire.
Right.
There's an obstacle in the way, and there's stakes, you know, that force them through the obstacle.
Right.
So that's where the conflict comes from. A hero with a goal, something in the way, and they have to get through it, or something life or death's going to happen. So in that sense, it sort of echoes that.
Absolutely.
And then down in the mini plot category, down in these like movies like, I don't know, Lady Bird comes to mind or something.
Clerks, maybe?
Clerks a little bit. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
It's less about that. Like sometimes there is no real goal, or the goals come and go, or the
conflict is within the character.
Conflicts can be.
I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
That's about it.
and
goal is to not do it.
And usually in an arch plot, which forces them to do it, most characters don't want to do something.
Yeah.
Like they're sitting around like the dude, and they just want their life to be normal. And then something comes along and forces them to get out of the house. Like Shrek doesn't want to leave his house, but he's forced out of his house to go on the mission.
Man, I think you just made me like Shrek more.
Oh, yeah.
Comparing it to the Big Lebowski.
So I think that is the... when you ask, does a movie have to have central conflict? We could probably find movies like Clerks or Slacker or something that don't have necessarily central conflict.
Usually probably Slice of Life.
Slice of life. Again,
but there's conflict within the scenes, you know, and that's what makes it the engine.
That's right.
Like Clerks has Randall.
Yeah.
To Don, you know what I mean? Like you need that character, the donkey.
Yeah.
Randall and Donkey are two characters that pull the.
No, absolutely.
Push the buttons. I don't know. I think this movie has a I mean, the central conflict is pretty consistent until it hits the third act and turns into a drug thriller.
That is the thing. This movie does have one.
Yeah.
So, right, and I was like, I feel like the movie is constantly asking it, though, can you make a movie without conflict? And then it kind of does say no.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think...
What does McKee say? Why are you wasting my fucking time?
2 hours with your my precious time with your fucking movie.
I think that the movies to be... I think that the movies to be believed. Charlie Kaufman spent some time trying to figure out that more realistic approach to life. And then eventually he said, I can't do it. So he settled on this approach that did have a lot of conflict and was writing about writer's block as opposed to just talking about flowers and how great flowers are.
Which turns into like a murder plot.
Right.
Yeah.
Being murdered in a swamp. Like, it just turns crazy. Yeah. Right.
No, but it says like, you asked like, I think we skipped over that. Does this movie have answers to writer's block? And I think this movie does. Like, take
a Robert McGee course.
Yeah, just take a Robert McGee course. Drop $500. He's got all the answers. No, like I am not like, because I read scripts all day, and a lot of people do not follow the quote unquote rules, and I'm fine with that. I'm not a guy who discourages voiceover, flashbacks, dream sequences, all these things that people are like, don't do that. Like,
a story's a story. If you tell it
right,
story's
a story. I am entertained when people do a dream sequence. Great. I'm like, this is fucking awesome. When people do great voiceover narration, I'm like, I love it. You know, there are ways. So I think this movie says, hey, like, if you got writer's block, like, throw everything. Put yourself in the story. Like, you know, it could still work. Like, try unconventional structure. Try using voiceover. Try using a dream sequence or flashbacks. Change the characters to be completely implausible to what they were before. You know, throw in a dramatic tonal shift. Like, this movie is a comedy and drama in the first half, and then all of a sudden it turns into a drug thriller, and it works. You know, and like, conventional storytelling would be like, Hollywood would be like, you can't do that. You can't turn it into a drug thriller the last 20 minutes. There were no drugs at all in this first half. And like, there's Deus Ex Machina. Like, it's got all these things that they tell you. It's a
movie that's like everything you shouldn't do in a movie, Adaptation does.
And
literally everything.
I think the lesson there is, you know, fuck it. Just like go for it and see what happens if you can't figure it out traditionally.
The point is that I like watching it.
Yeah.
So whatever he did... It worked.
Yeah.
The weird thing about this movie, but if I did this, the joke would be on me. I could save the cat this movie.
Me too.
There's a catalyst.
Oh,
there's a break into.
Oh, yeah. No,
there's a midpoint.
I was just about to ask about
that's
structure.
Where we can go into
Let's
the
talk
next
about
thing.
structure.
Let's talk about we can talk about structure and the rebuttal aspect the question you asked, Bob. What was it?
The one I just asked?
The next one that's on the list.
The next one on the list. Because we write these things down.
Yeah.
Is this a rebuttal to Hollywood adaptations or a validation of them?
Jamie.
You know, watching this movie, this is the question. I think Bob wrote this question. I thought I wrote it because while I was watching this movie, that was the debate I was having in my mind.
That's such a compliment to me.
Yeah,
I'm happy about it.
I honestly, when you wrote that, I was like, "Wow, did I write that or did Bob?" But I was like, "I'm pretty sure."
Jamie mistakes my work for his, I'll take it.
Because the whole movie, I was going back and forth. Is he making fun of it, or is he actually saying that's the way it has to be done in a weird sort of way? And in a weird sort of way, I came out to the side that it's the... I'm going to say he was pro Hollywood screenwriting techniques. That's my take.
I'm 100% actually with Jamie on this. I actually think Charlie Kaufman, more so than most people would guess, is a huge fan of movies.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah,
like more so than anything, I think he's a huge fan of films. He's just he expresses it in different ways, and I think that he's a guy that I can. If there was an interview with him where he said I go and see every Marvel movie, I wouldn't even be surprised. Like, I think to some degree he enjoys the game of writing and structure and, you know, the cliches and everything.
That's funny because, like, the Charlie Kaufman he portrays loathes the process.
But he's also Donald.
But
yeah,
he's
he
also
is Donald. Yeah, he is Donald.
But there is a guilt there to the fact that it seems like he's guilty because he feels guilty for loving all of it.
Absolutely.
And he's almost like he's
flagellating
himself about it. But he's like, I love it, and the movie. I think the last half of this movie is proof.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I would say that's true of all writers. You know, I love this stuff too. I love the Robert McGee of it all. I think it's very interesting to me. There are also times when I'm like, you know, is it too strict or is it too that? So I think all writers kind of have that to a certain degree within them.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely a statement of the frustrations that can come about by these standards, you know, that we're expected to follow, not just from the Hollywood reader and producer standpoint, but from the audience.
Yeah.
Like, if I don't do these things, the audience is not going to respond to my story, you know? So it's the frustrations and, like, how to deal with that. I think I think it does both. Yeah. Like, I think it says, like, a story can be good without doing any of these things, and it shows you all the ways that it can be good.
Well, I don't agree there. I don't think it shows that a story can be good without conflict, because this is inherently a conflict.
I was going to say the same thing, because I think if we actually saw the version that he wanted to write, we would realize it does not work at all.
The movie is a condemnation of Charlie himself on what he wants to do.
Yeah,
because you know what I'm saying.
No, but like,
imagine the Orca thief with no car chases and no murders,
like
no ending, no love story.
Yeah,
like it's that like Nicolas Cage as Charlie tells Nicolas Cage as Donald, you can't write a story where one actor is playing both characters. And then Donald says, we'll use trick photography. Like, dude, it's that fucking moment.
Right.
Amazing. But that works. That's what I'm saying. That's an argument on the positive side. Look what we just did. That's like a big middle finger. Like, that's amazing.
But it's also disproving Charlie.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
Like, I think at every turn, Charlie himself is disproven. It's him.
Good call.
It's him arguing with himself.
Good call.
On like 6 levels that it's almost like he's operating on it as an alien at some point.
I think you're getting it totally for me, because we never see Charlie's way win out.
No,
it does nothing. Wins out.
No, even when they're on that log at the end, when they're when Meryl Streep is chasing them and they can't find them, that moment, the "what you love" moment, I feel like that is the moment where Donald is completely validated, and also in that moment he says, like, he's been aware this whole time of what's been going on. Yeah. Like, Donald's he's not a buffoon.
Yeah,
he's just has a better outlook on life.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know who you are and I know who I am and I love you, man. And it's like this like super sweet moment in this insanely weird movie where you completely buy that these two are separate characters.
Yeah.
And their whole arc, that's where their arc ends for me, both of them. That moment on that log.
Definitely.
Like, there's a little bit of an epilogue and stuff, but that moment on that log is like, okay, I'm totally satisfied with this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it does. Yeah.
Okay.
You said it.
What do we got left?
I don't know. We covered. I mean,
I just kind of covered the last thing we wrote.
Yeah. I mean,
this is a hard movie to discuss. Yeah. You really think you could save the cat movie? Save the cat?
I could save the cat. The structure.
You think you guys could?
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know Save the Cat as well as you do. I just know
there's
movies.
a Dark Knight of the Soul. I mean, there's all of them. There's a midpoint.
Here, we could do it super fast.
Okay.
What do you think the inciting incident is? Getting the job?
I mean, it's like the opening scene is almost hits the ground running because he's talking about the job right away.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that accepting of the job.
Yeah, accepting of the job.
Then he probably struggles with it a little bit.
He struggles with it.
And then the break into would be it's probably something where writer's block comes into play.
Yeah, like something to do with Donald.
Something to do with Donald.
Things keep distracting him.
Donald plays Donald because Donald has a lot of functions in the movie, but for me mainly he acts as an antagonist. He's like an internal antagonist. He's forcing all the change in
the
Charlie.
other side of Charlie. Yeah.
So I mean, maybe it's that. Maybe the end of Act 1 is like suddenly Donald is like, I've got a movie idea too, and blah, 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 and that makes him go, shit, like what? I have to really hit the gas and make this work. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to do off the cuff.
No, I think I think we had it laid out, the beats laid out before, so it wouldn't be hard at all. Because when I was watching it, I could sense where they were. I
mean, he obviously knows it too. He knows that structure.
Because essentially, you have a hero who's trying to do something. He has a goal. Write the screenplay. There's conflict in there in that he has writer's block, and there's the other side of his conscious Donald trying to force him down another path. And he goes through various hits. Like, I don't know if they're midpoints or I was lost. I have to rewatch the movie. He goes through various points where he's like, I can't do this. He's trying to get out of it.
Right.
He finally breaks down and sees McGee, has a breakthrough. Then he tries to meet her. That's a miserable failure. Then the drug stuff comes into play, and that spins it into the next part.
Yeah.
It has. I can't do it off the top of my head necessarily, but I think it does have a very.
There's a massive forward momentum.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's causality between scenes. Everything like leads into the next thing. It's very, if this, then like all that stuff is true.
Yeah, it's well written in the midst of all of that.
Yeah. I mean, I think the shift...
it is a I mean, it almost answers like 3 questions ago. It is a validation of the Hollywood structure because it's itself. If it's saving the cat in the midst of all these other themes. I mean, he's got to be aware of that. I mean, right? It's like he wouldn't.
I'd be interested.
And Save the Cat was already huge by.
It actually wasn't out by then.
Really? I thought Save the Cat was.
But
like
Save the
90s.
Cat's just a new skin on things like Sid Field
stuff.
Yeah, Robert McGee was the Save the Cat of that time.
Yeah. So in the late '90s, early 2000s.
When I came in the late '90s, and I met an agent, the agent said, "You don't know what you're doing. You got to read this book." And then, boom, they put down Story Robert McGee. I was like, "Really, that book?" And honestly, that's Save the Cat's saving grace. Is that it's super thin. You can read it in a night.
Yeah.
I'm still not done Story after 1998. It's like, I think Story was his way of saying, this is so hard that you have to come to my seminar.
Absolutely. It's intimidating in itself.
I think it's
and
almost
he makes it way
so.
way more tangible in person. He breaks it down.
Right.
I've been to it.
You've been to it. Okay.
I've been to that, and he's got genre days. I went to the thriller one. I went to the comedy one. I went to the horror one. I've been to. He packaged it as a 4-day thing. So you had the story was 2 days, and then you did genre things.
Sounds to me like he knows how to make money.
Oh, dude.
Oh, he does.
Absolutely. He's a great showman, too.
Yeah, people that go to it say it's very entertaining.
Yeah.
Like he's fun.
I'm saying the thing he wrote that's great is that it's the fucking seminar.
Yeah.
The Brian Cox, he's just like that, dude. He'll call people out like, your question is fucking dumb.
I don't know the answer to this, but has McGee ever commented on this movie?
He liked it.
Oh, he did. He
actually.
It?
So the rumor was
he had to give permission.
He gave permission first of all, but he also suggested. He said, "I'll only let you do it." This is the rumor. If Brian Cox, my friend Brian Cox,
that's right. He did. I've heard that too.
Oh shit. Okay.
He actually was on board. You could see why, because he's kind of a guy that would love.
He's excellent. It's an amazing performance.
Yeah.
Built for Brian Cox, pretty much.
But to an extent, Save the Cat is actually a reaction to Robert.
I think so
McGee.
too.
So Save the Cat was like Blake Snyder saying, "This is really good information, but it's written for like people in college or PhDs or something."
That's the War and Peace. Let me write.
I'm gonna write
notes version.
The fur dummies.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
and that's what
there's shit in Story that'll go over so many people's heads. They'll just be looking at it like, I mean, I'm talking about people myself.
Not me. I'm smarter than
that. Yeah, it's very stuffy.
Yeah, once you get to the controlling ideas, negation of negation, stuff.
I mean, honestly, part of me also feels like Save the Cat. If I just see an outline, I get it. Like, I don't even need the whole book, even on Save the Cat.
It's very intuitive.
Like an outline.
Story is not intuitive.
That's how I teach it. I just say, here's the outline.
Right.
Let's watch a video.
I also feel like Save the Cat, like you said, it's common sense. If you've spent your whole life, all of us, watching movies, you just
fun and games. The fun and games.
Right.
Yeah. All you got to do is like watch The Incredibles and just write down the structure. I mean, you're done.
They should do a sequel to Adaptation where it's Save the Cat.
Whoa. Charlie, are you listening?
With talking animals.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, do we have anything else we want to add on Adaptation?
Yeah, I think we talked.
I mean, we could obviously talk about this movie for hours.
The only thing I'd like to add is Nick Cage should have been nominated and won an Oscar for this movie.
It's really awesome.
And Chris Cooper was the guy who got nominated.
Which is a great performance.
Yeah,
it's a great performance, but compared to Nick Cage when I was watching it this time, to me it's not even close. Not that I want the two to compete. I'm just saying, give Nick Cage an Oscar.
I mean, we're not that podcast, but like when it comes to performances where I don't see the actor anymore, this is the Nick Cage performance.
Gosh, I know.
Like
Transformed.
kind of how I don't see Travolta when I watch Pulp Fiction. I don't feel like that's Travolta. This to me doesn't even read like Nick Cage. That's how good the performance is.
No. Yeah. And the only other thing, and if people have listened all the way through and haven't seen Adaptation, which if you're listening to this podcast, I think it's a must-watch movie.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, come on.
I think it's just a must-watch movie.
It's a must-watch. And that's why
as a screenwriter, you'll appreciate it.
Yeah.
And
It's now I don't agree that it's for everyone. You know, I don't know if it's
surprisingly, I think it's more for everyone than I did before I rewatched it.
I think it's very.
I watched it. Actually, my mom watched half of it, and then she just got up and walked out.
I think it's a lot more commercial than I gave.
Maybe not for everybody.
I was visiting her, and it was the night before we were supposed to record, and I was like, "Well, I gotta watch Adaptation." I was like, "I'm sorry, Mom," and then so that's fine, whatever.
But Meryl Streep's in it.
That might be the reason. The cast is so good. It kind of like, I love these people. They're probably saying something important.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you have anything? You don't have anything left? You good? You good?
I think what did we learn?
What's the lesson of Jesus? What is the lesson?
I'll go with because since we never answered, I'll go with the little writer's block hint. I mean, writer's block is almost always about the fear of sucking. Right? Isn't that what it always is? So you have this idea in your head, but as soon as you start writing it, you're gonna be like, "Oh, that's not as good as the thing I imagined," which is kind of to me the theme of the movie. The thing you're gonna write is never gonna be as great as that thing you imagined. So let yourself suck. We all suck. Just go and suck. Suck more. That's what I say. That's my lesson.
Jimmy?
Suck more. Suck more. Yeah, be scared to suck. Yeah.
What was on Stuck on You? The Farrelly brothers walked up to Matt Damon, and their only direction was suck less.
Suck less. Yeah.
Great. No, I think the lesson is, for me, this movie, better than any other movie, shows how you can do all of those things that all the books and the instructors and everything tell you that you shouldn't do. You can do the voiceover, you can do the dream sequence, you can do the flashback, you can break the fourth wall. Like, you can do massive tonal shifts. You can do all these things that are normally discouraged and still tell a commercial 3-act structure movie. Yeah.
Or I'm even going to piggyback on that a little bit. You can tell a 3-act structure movie, and look how creative you can get within the. I think this is the Save the Cat movie. So to think that Save the Cat is ruining Hollywood because everything's so much alike. I think this is the Save the Cat movie, and I think Black Panther's the Save the Cat movie. Let's put those side by side. Yeah. You tell me that they're blueprints of one another.
Yeah. Very good point. Yeah. Bob?
My lesson? I mean, I'll go even a little bit more abstract than Jimmy or you. I'll just say, walking away from this, it just says to me movies can be anything. Sometimes they can't explain why they work. I mean, we just spent like an hour talking about why this works, but I'm not even sure I'm convinced even now. Sometimes movies can be anything, and voice is the most important thing. I believe in voice more than anything ever when it comes to storytelling. Like, Charlie Kaufman has an unstoppable voice, and that's
unmistakable too,
right? And that's what will always make his stuff interesting and compelling, no matter what, no matter if it has no structure, like Schenectady, New York, or whatever you want to point to.
Hopefully he gets a Star Wars movie sometime soon.
Oh my
Sign
God.
me up for that.
Yes.
Gosh, Ant-Man 3, Charlie Kaufman.
What is the Force? Do I use it? I don't know.
Man, if you think the fanboys were angry at Rian Johnson, imagine the Charlie Kaufman Star Wars. All right. Well, I think we're done.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. You have just listened to Writer's Blockbusters, a screenwriting podcast featuring 2 professionals and another guy. Available only on Thundergrunt.